Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Nosebleeds Section podcast. My name is Nick alongside my co host Thomas. This is episode 2, which is going to be up on only YouTube because we found out you have to pay to put your stuff up on Spotify. So, just doing YouTube. But it's still coming out every Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. with little clips every other day. Last episode, we talked about the MLB, the NBA, and the NFL. Today, we're going to start with the NHL and their return to action. There is no set date, but at the current moment, they have a 24 team bracket, and that's including anyone who is really close to making the playoffs. The top four teams in each division, they were playing or they were put into a spot where they have a bye, or it's the top eight, I think. Yeah, top eight seem to have a bye. And then there's a bunch of other teams that were basically more or less fighting for the wild card spots, and they had to play a playing game to get into, I guess, what you can consider the actual bracket. Very similar to like March Madness, how there's playing games for the 16 seed or like other seeds in order to get in, and then you'll play a much higher seed. That seems what the NHL is doing. They were, I believe, the very first sport to get a deal done between the NHL and the NHLPA. There is no set date, and they are still not really sure where this tournament is going to take place. There's no set place. They were looking at two possible cities. Like they want to do it in two possible cities, but there's been places that have turned them down because they don't want to host this or anything. That I don't know what the NHL is really doing, but they have a whole format set up. They have a whole format. They have a whole um like agreement set up between the NHL and the NHLPA. What are your thoughts? Like, run me through what you're thinking with the NHL. Did they do it right?
Well, actually, even though it seems like the two sides have agreed, technically the proposal that the players have to vote on isn't until the end of this week. I think it's on Friday. So
They
it,
didn't
it
agree yet.
probably they didn't agree yet, but it seems like the way both sides have talked about it, it seems like it will be agreed upon. The voting just hasn't opened for the players yet to actually vote on it. And then originally the they want to have two hub cities obviously for either conference,
Yeah,
but it seems like they actually narrowed it down to two because of cost. Obviously, they're already losing money. So it was released yesterday of this recording, but actually Tuesday, that it seems like it's going to be Toronto and Edmonton, which are two cities in Canada. So they want to do one in Canada, one in the United States. There's not going to be a United States hub city. It's just going to be both in Canada, and then they'll go on from there. But technically, their reason there is no start date is because the proposal hasn't been agreed upon, but it most likely will at the end of the week.
yeah. And then I think it's going to be like a best of one playing series. And then when it goes from 24 to 16, it's going to become a best of five. Um, and from what I've read, it's going to be like a round robin between the top four teams. Although I don't know how that's going to work to determine their seeding and where they play, but it's going to go to a best of five instead. I believe what's normally a best of seven. I want to say each series
Yes.
in the NHL is.
Yes.
I don't think it's like baseball where baseball goes like best of three, best of five, best of seven. I'm pretty sure they all play best of seven. But yeah, it's gonna go from 24 to 16, and I believe the 24 teams or like the teams that have to play the play-in, it's just a one-off. It's when you go on, lose, you go home, and then it goes to 16, which is just the best of five series, kind of more or less very similar to well, really any bracket you look at, but the best I can think of is March Madness because they have the playing games where you'll just, I mean, they don't have a best of five or best of seven or best of three, but they have the playing game to go play the higher seed, and then it's going to be the better team will come out of that. Obviously, it's going to be very different because very similar to well any sport that's coming back, these players more or less play the season, have a little off, like a not a little, I would say a couple months, 3 month, 3 4 months off period, and then they're just coming back to go play like the biggest tournament of the year. Not very easy to just play, leave, come back and play and expect to be at your best. Which
Yeah, I feel like playoff hockey is some of the best like sport television you could watch because it's so intense. So I feel like now that the season's pretty much over, they're going straight into the tournament. Like the NBA has a little bit of a regular season, those 8 games, they're going to be still competitive, but I feel like with the playing games like starting right off the bat for the NHL, at least in the proposal, It's going to be like playoff hockey from day one, which is going to make it really exciting. And I feel like they have a really good opportunity to gain more fans just because of that. Playoff hockey's always been something that I feel like has higher viewership than the regular season by a significant margin. Other sports, obviously, it's probably a little bit higher viewership, but NHL, I feel like the viewership during the playoffs is its absolute highest. It might be even one of the most watched playoffs in out of all the sports. And to see them have such a little bit longer of that playoff atmosphere, I feel like it's going to be really exciting to see with the teams. And I mean, obviously, at first you can't expect them to be playing that hockey that they're usually playing at the time of the playoffs. But I feel like just the intensity and the sacrifice that they have to put into it is still going to make it so entertaining.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's not like they're just gonna be rusty. I mean, I've seen it with some of the sports that have come back, um, like European soccer and everything. Like, they're still best players of like the best of the best, but they're rusty. They're not used to playing these very competitive, high level matches or games anymore. And also, very similar to the NBA, I feel like the crowd impacts playoff hockey a lot, and they're obviously not going to have that crowd impact anymore. It's going to be more or less just going to the rink and playing a high level game. They're obviously going to play and compete, but it's not going to be the same as it would be normal playoff hockey. It's going to be very, very different. Because I've gone to a Rangers playoff game before. It's very intense. It's very intense. There's like the crowd's very into it. But there's no like for any team, no team has that. And so it's very similar to basketball in the fact that these crowds that normally impact the games or streaks or any like little parts of play, like a big hit in the NHL, is not going to be as cheered for as it normally would. Not even close. I feel like that is also going to have a very big impact. Like there's not much of a home rink advantage, like not at all.
Yeah,
Like
I feel like it's unfortunate that this is obviously happening. But I feel like the NHL, I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like it's always been a sport where the players on the teams, while they're playing at least, seem like they almost hate each other, which a lot of sports don't have anymore. Like basketball, you see like players on opposite teams when they hit a shot over them, like laughing with each other. Like in hockey, if you do something, you have a chance to get popped right in the mouth, and I feel like that's still going to be there. But you're right, the fact that the crowd won't be there. I mean, that's for every sport, but hockey playoffs definitely the crowd is a huge factor, and you're correct.
yeah, it's just not gonna have the same feel. Obviously, like hockey, I think is the one sport that everyone can kind of agree on. Like maybe you can like put football up there, but like hockey is if you're playing like you hate who you're going against. And whether it, I feel like there's so many more rivalries in hockey than there are in almost any other sport. Obviously, there's rivalries, but like in hockey, every game you go out and you just want to just hit the other team around. Like you don't want like you just want to beat them as bad as you can possibly beat them, and you just want to hit them as hard as you can hit them. Like there's no like as you said in basketball, there's no like they might be friends like after and everything, but there's no like oh yo we're buddies. Like I'm not gonna try to hit you that hard. I'm not gonna like do anything like that hard. No, they are full out just going right at each other, just trying to hit anyone and everyone, which is what makes playoff hockey so great. Like it just
Exactly.
brings their intense like their intensity level is obviously very high during the season, but then you come up to playoff hockey and it's so much higher because there's so much more on the line, which is why I feel the crowd makes such a bigger difference because when there's so much more on the line, the crowd gets into it, and any little thing like a little hit, like a big save or like obviously goals, but anything like big or like that doesn't seem as big during the regular season is huge in playoff hockey, and it just starts like a big momentum swift or swing from one side to the other. So I feel it's going to be very interesting when they decide to come back. They don't have a set date yet. They just have the plan of the 2014 tournament, and when it goes down to 16, it's just going to be a best of 5. Yeah, and they were looking at 2 hub cities to host it. They don't even have the cities yet. They did do the the NHL lottery for the draft, but that's not even complete yet. So we're not going to talk about that until it's complete because the top 2 seeds or the top 2 picks are going to be determined by the playoffs, depending on like I guess what 2 teams get knocked out first or however that works, which I think is kind of dumb. So like if you get knocked out first, it's like oh we got knocked out, but we might have the first pick. I think it's pretty dumb. I don't really understand why they did it that way because it's not like the NBA where it's a percentage chance or you have a higher like the worse you do, you have a higher percent chance of having a higher pick. It's just worst record gets best pick. So I don't really understand how that's gonna work, but it's definitely an interesting concept, and we will not talk about the lottery up until it fully comes out, and then we can talk about the lottery, who might get picked, and so on, who's gonna look the best after it. Um, but yeah, everything's coming back. It's just great to see everything finally coming back. It's great to see everything finally coming back to the way, kind of the way it was. I don't even know about like last episode we talked about the return of the NBA and how they are gonna push their start season for next year back. I don't know. I don't even think the NHL came out with anything like that. So I don't know what the NHL is gonna do. They obviously got their stuff done first. They have a whole setup done, and it's as you said, playoff hockey right from the beginning. Very intense. Obviously not gonna be the same, but I don't know if it's gonna be intense. It's hockey. Everyone playoff hockey is
Everyone loves
intense.
hockey.
Yeah, everyone playoff hockey is the best time. Like it's one of the best sports to like watch. 100%.
100%.
Also returning very soon, which does have a start date, is the MLS. The MLS is returning July 8th. That is the start of it, and very similar to the NHL, they have everything set up. Everything is done. It's ready. They are one of I think the second. They were behind the NHL in getting their setup done. They are coming back. July 8th is the very first game, and it's going to be taking place in Orlando. Games being taking place in Orlando, and it's not a bracket play; it's group play, which is very similar to the World Cup. There's three groups from each conference. The West has three groups. The East has three groups. That will be portrayed on your screen right now if you're watching from YouTube. Um, each team in the West has four teams. You're gonna play a minimum of three games, so basically you just gotta play everyone in your bracket. Same thing in the East, but in the East, one of the groups has six in order to just make every game like even, because that way you just play everyone. Or actually, no, in Group A you're not gonna play everyone. I guess you're just gonna play three, like just three other teams. So you're not gonna play two teams if you're in Group A. But that's gonna be portrayed on your screen right now. I After that, which will also be on your screen, because I have a little calendar kind of thing. July 8th is going to be the start of group stage, and that's going to go all the way till July 25th to the 28th, and that's going to go into a bracket play around the 16. July 30th to the 1st, quarterfinals. August 5th to the 6th, the semifinals, and August 11th is going to be the very final of the MLS tournament. I don't have an exact date on when the MLS normally ends, but I don't know if the MLS is going to be pushed back much because that seems. I know the MLS goes through the summer, so August 11th doesn't seem too far back of their normal end date or too ahead. I don't know exactly. But I mean, they have everything done. They have it all set. They have the way everything's done. The Player Association and the MLS have agreed on a deal. MLS is coming back, and they're going to be the first sport to come back. They are the first major sport in the U.S. to come back. And honestly, it's just as much as people hate watching soccer because a lot of people say it's slow or a lot of people just don't like it, it's going to bring in new fans. It's the only sport back. It's honestly a very good look for the MLS.
Did you see their living situation though? I don't know if you saw the pictures yesterday.
No, I did not. I did not see their.
I saw a picture. It was obviously trending on Twitter on Tuesday. But I think it was FC Toronto, if that's a team, or the team from Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto FC.
Okay, there we go. I think all the players are staying at the Swan and Dolphin Resort, which is in Disney World, obviously.
Yeah.
Where they're playing their games, and the players are not allowed to leave. Similar to what the NBA is going to be doing, they have meals delivered to their room. The players took a picture of what their meals were that they got delivered for lunch, and it might have been the least nutritious meal I've ever seen a professional athlete be forced to eat.
What
They
were
had
they
like
eating?
it was like one sandwich that was like put on the oven and it was overcooked. We'll have a picture of it up so you guys can see it. But it was like an overcooked sandwich, a cut up banana. I think it was only half the banana, and it just looked absolutely disgusting. And the players were mind blown that this is because they weren't allowed to go out. They're being forced to stay in that bubble. So whatever they get to eat is all they get to eat. And the fact that they're getting a meal that's not even what a professional athlete should be eating is mind blowing to me.
Oh, that's insane. I mean, look, obviously it's not ideal. Obviously they would like. I mean, they're playing for the biggest tournament of the year, or it's going to be the biggest tournament. It's not obviously going to always be like this. This is this is the tournament of the year. This is to win everything. Then I feel like it should be a little better. Obviously, maybe things are not as they're not as great as you want them to be. It's definitely not the best meal. But looking at this article, I found that so the two top teams from every group, so there's six groups. The top two teams from each group are going to move on to bracket play. Um, and then four of the third place finishers will also move on to the knockout like bracket play. And that's just going to be the best record out of the three. So that's going to go. My guess is if there's two teams that are tied, it's going to go to goal differential, which is goals against, goals for, depending on how that works. Because I mean, there is no home field advantage. There's none of that. So it's got to be goal differential. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh yes, it is goal differential. It is goal differential. Um, yeah, and then so the group stages will count as points towards the 2020 regular season standings, which is obviously very different than most sports even do because most sports don't have the points for each win being worth 3, a draw being worth 1, and a loss being worth nothing. So I guess that's how. I guess even if you go 3-0, you don't even have a guarantee of making it out. Although they weren't very far in, so I don't know how that's gonna work. But players can earn an additional 1.1 million prize pool for their performance during the event, during this like tournament and everything, which I think, on top of just winning everything, I think is a pretty good incentive to do well.
Definitely, I wouldn't mind $1 million.
Yeah, right. And that's per player, I believe. Yeah, it says players will earn additional bonuses from 1.1 million.
I mean, that's good. I feel like a lot of leagues should be doing that. I feel like it's a dangerous time. I mean, everyone has to deal with it, not just athletes. Obviously, everyone has to go out. But I feel like there should be an incentive for these players to obviously have to leave their families for weeks at a time, even months, depending on the sport. And there should be some sort of additional incentive to still have them go out and perform the way they do every game.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Um, yeah, but the MLS is finally coming back. Um, Honestly, big props to them. They got everything done they needed to, and I mean they just look better than most other sports do at the moment. Obviously, that's kind of excluding the NFL because well, it's not their season. But most other major sports in America is in the smack middle of their season or at the beginning of their season if you're the MLB. But obviously, we talked about the struggles the MLB has had trying to get just their season back. And it's only a 60 game season, as we talked about last episode. Make sure to go check that out.
I have one more question about the MLS because obviously I haven't even watched soccer until recently, where I've only been I guess a lax viewer you want to call it.
Yeah.
How many games does the MLS usually play in a standard season? About you don't know if you know the exact, but about.
So they normally play each team twice, and you normally play home, like each team home and each team away. So there's 26 teams, so you're gonna end up playing like I can't do math. Like actually no, it's actually off. They end up playing like 40 something games. My math is just
How many
really
games are there before they start like the playoff similar tournament they have this
they're gonna
time?
play 3. So they normally play 34 regular season games, which is 17 home games, 17 away games.
Mm-hmm.
They normally play 34. Other leagues are you'll play everyone once home, once away, but the MLS has 26 teams, which is a lot more than most other leagues and around the world. But yeah, they'll play that, and then it just goes based off record to get into the playoffs. But for this, you're gonna play 3 games. Just basically everyone in your group, unless you're in the group of 6, then you're just gonna play you just gotta play 3 teams in your group. I don't know how they're gonna determine who plays what game, or like who plays who. But yeah, it's just gonna be those 3 games, and then it's gonna go towards points in the 2020 regular season standings. And I guess if you're atop of that, you'll move out of your group.
That's interesting. I feel like their games are obviously cut really short because they didn't play that much of a season before
No, they
everything got
didn't.
shut down.
They really didn't play any at all. I think they were 3 or 4 games in. Um,
Wow. I'm
yeah, I think
surprised to see. I'm surprised to see the way they're handling this now, just with such a short play-in. Just because I mean, I feel like they're in a different situation than other sports. Like obviously, them and MLB hadn't started yet, but MLB is still doing a 60-game season.
yeah, they played.
But their season goes longer anyway.
Yeah,
Where now I feel like the MLS is obviously that you said their season is still ending around the same time as usual. Where I guess that makes sense. You kind of want to keep it the same. But now their games are cut short. I feel like so many teams are going to be at a disadvantage now.
yeah. They only played 2 games, by the way. Like they just
Two
played two.
games.
That's it. So I mean, I don't. I guess every team kind of has a chance, but like if you're like, so you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, and 0 points for a loss. So like, there's a chance that even like, no matter depending on your group, that if you even if you win all three, like there's a chance you still might not get out because 3 points is a lot. Like for example, the top of the West is Sporting Kansas City. They have 6 points because they won both their games. At the bottom is the Houston Dynamo. They have 0 points. They lost both their games. Oh no, just kidding. They have 1 point. So I'll do it in the East. Atlanta United won both their games. They have 6 points. New York City FC have 0 points. They lost both their games. Now, if New York City is in Atlanta's group, and New York City wins all three, and Atlanta wins one, they're tied on 9 points.
Wow.
There's a chance that they might not even get out, and that's only if Atlanta wins one. But Atlanta, a very good team, they could just win all three, and then that just New York City is more or less in a position of having to win, especially if
That's
they are not like one of the top two teams, because the top two get out, and the third place, 3 or 4 of the third place teams will get out of their group, which is not ideal. But I mean, you can make up a bigger point differential at the same time. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how it ends up working out. As more details come out and as bracket play starts, we will definitely talk about this because it's one of the only sports that are officially back. I mean, wait, baseball goes back today, I believe. Today's the
yeah.
first
They
day.
start their training camp.
Yeah, today is the first day. Um, yeah, so they're like the first group back, so that is something we will definitely talk about. They start their games July 8th, so that is next week. Yeah, next weekend. So that is something we're definitely going to talk about because sports, they're back. They're back finally. But yeah, they're back. It's going to be interesting to see how it comes out, how it turns out. I don't know exactly how groups were determined because the East has one group of 6, which doesn't make sense. Oh, wait, actually, yeah, it does. It does make sense. There's 14 teams in the East and 12 in the West. Oh, so also, which would be an interesting topic soon, does the MLS add 2 more teams to the West? I feel like that
Uh,
is something they might do to make it 14 and 14. Although I'm pretty sure they said they wanted to do something similar to the NFL and have like 30 teams. But I
you said they
feel
have 26 right now,
yes, they have 26 right now.
but the conferences are uneven.
There's 14 in the East and there's 12 in the West.
That's crazy.
So my guess is they're gonna add 2 more to the West at some point.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense that instead of having 13-13, you have an odd number in the conferences. So obviously, you obviously want to keep it 14 and 12. I guess it's just weird to see that. I mean, it's based off points though, so I guess your record doesn't really matter as much. So
Yeah, and especially like you're gonna play 17 home, 17 away, so you might not like you're only gonna play each team twice max. I think.
okay,
So I don't think you just play your conference. Like you're definitely gonna play like Western Conference games. Like the whole MLS is not bad. That's a topic for another day, for in my opinion. But yeah, the MLS. Look, props to them. I don't agree with a lot of what the MLS does, just because of the way they run it, because they run it more Americanized than I guess the way the rest of the entire world runs their league. But the MLS got it done. The MLS got it done. They're coming back, and props to them. They did it before everyone else, and they start the soonest also. So they've just overall just done a really good job. I give them props. But as the MLS starts to come back and they start playing games and things start shaking up in the standings, we will definitely talk about that more. But heading into our next topic, we are going to do some NFL predictions. Obviously, the NFL is not back yet. They did have their draft, so this is going to be predictions based on where rookies went, where some rookies might have a bigger impact than others, like the Joe Burrows, like the Tua Tagovailoas. see how they end up matching up against other teams in their division. Where do you want to start?
I think we start with the division of my team, which is the AFC East, because I feel like there's been a lot of news in that division. Obviously, the AFC East with the
Oh, a
Patriots obviously picking up Cam
ton
Newton.
of news. Getting rid of Tom Brady. They were gonna. I mean, maybe Jared Stidham still starts. I don't know who exactly takes that starting role, but yeah, they signed Cam Newton. Does Cam Newton have a big effect on where you think the Patriots are gonna end up in that division?
I think he does. I feel like the Patriots were a team that I personally felt like had a chance of finishing on the bottom of the AFC East for the first time in over 20 years. And just because of the addition of Cam Newton having a quarterback that at least has some relevance to the NFL. I feel like Jared Stidham, not that he's a bad quarterback, but nobody knew about him. You can't really predict how they were going to do. So you just
Former
assume they're going to do
MVP,
bad. Yeah,
former
now you have
MVP,
former
and
MVP on the
yeah, and
team.
Cam Newton. I mean,
So
I don't know who's gonna start. Like they only signed Cam Newton to I think it's like $7.5 million deal, which the fact that they got Cam Newton for that low is insane. The Bears paid 21 million for Nick Foles. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
Nick Foles has won a Super Bowl. Cam Newton has not, but I think most people would agree that Cam Newton is a better quarterback than Nick Foles.
yeah,
But 7.5 million to get him, they really didn't pay that much at all, and they got a former MVP. Probably, I mean, you could still argue like he's young. He's still a really good quarterback. Like he's not bad by any means. So I think it was great signing. Where do you have the Patriots ending up in this division?
I actually don't have the Patriots winning the division, but I do have them finishing second in the division. I feel like the Bills, obviously, um, still a great team. I think they're going to improve off of last year. They have a phenomenal young defense, probably one of the best in the NFL. I still feel like they top the Patriots, but I feel like the Patriots are still a team that comes in second in the division.
I feel that too. I have the Bills winning the division. Josh Allen, if he's got a deep threat now. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's got a very very good wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, and he still has most of his offense coming back. I think they, as you said, they just build on last year. They went 10-6 last year, only 2 games behind the Patriots, and they added to their team. If they kind of do worse than last year, I feel like it's a bad season. I'm gonna be honest. I feel this is their division to lose. I have the Patriots finishing in second, the Jets, and the Dolphins. I don't know if Tua comes in and starts right away, and if he does, I don't know if he has as big of an impact as the Dolphins want him to. It takes a while to adapt to the NFL. It's definitely not that easy. The Jets, I feel, could have a very, very good season, but at the same time, I feel they're having a lot of difficulties and troubles off the field with Jamal Adams, and I don't know if he stays. If he stays with the Jets, I feel that brings locker room issues. So I don't know exactly what happens unless they can work out that relationship and everything. But yeah, it's the Bills' division to lose. They added on top of already a very very good team, and the Patriots. I feel it's just gonna come down to who starts for them at quarterback, Cam Newton or Jarrett Stidham, and depending on who starts, if they can fit into Belichick's system the way Belichick wants it to work. Because obviously with Tom Brady, it was phenomenal. They were still I mean, they're still up there as one of the better teams. They have a very good defense, a very good offense. I still think they're very good. But it is the Bills' division to lose. What about the AFC South?
For the
Titans,
AFC,
Texans, Colts, Jaguars. Who do you have topping that division?
I have the Colts winning the division. Obviously, they have the
Colts.
yeah. I feel like with the addition of Philip Rivers, they had a Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, their quarterback from last year is a solid quarterback. I feel like he's a solid starter. Obviously, from New England, he found out that he was going to be the starting quarterback like 7 days before the season started.
Well, yeah, that's
Like
when
that.
Andrew Luck was like, "Oh yeah, I'm actually gonna retire."
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like for a quarterback, you have to design your offense around your quarterback. And I feel like obviously everything the Colts have done was like make that team, make that offense be a perfect offense for Andrew Luck. And right before the season starts, you have to change your quarterback. And obviously they have different strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like because they've had a full offseason now, even though obviously it hasn't been like a normal offseason, they could plan for Philip Rivers, who's obviously going to be the starter. Yeah, he's an experienced quarterback. That's what they need. I feel like you're going to be surprised with the Colts. They were still able to do well, even having an offense that didn't work perfectly for their quarterback. You saw them start to win tough games towards the middle and towards the end of the season. And I feel like that's just going to carry into next season with a veteran quarterback who has a lot of fire when he plays, and it's gonna carry that team. I think.
I agree with you. I do think the Colts are going to have a better season. They didn't really get a chance to make an offense designed for Jacoby Brissett, as you just said. He was put the starter like 7 days before the season actually started. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do. Although I have the Titans winning this division. They just got Ryan Tannehill to a 4-year deal, something
Yeah, I
like
think it was
that,
4 or 5.
4 or 5 year deal. He obviously had a very good year last year. Derrick Henry is just a beast. He's going to be hard to stop. And it's a young offense, a very young offense with a pretty good defense, to be honest with you. I think they improve upon last year. Maybe not significantly, but I think it's their division. I think they're going to take it. I have the Texans in second, although the Texans and the Colts could be flipped. The Texans, I can't see them winning the division. They just got rid of their probably their best receiver, if not one of the best receivers in the NFL. I think you can argue. He's
Yeah,
obviously going over to the Cardinals, and I forgot his name, which is why I haven't mentioned it.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I just blanked. I just blanked thinking of him. But yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson still a very good quarterback. You just got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, who is obviously a very, very good receiver. I don't know if their offense is as good as it is or was. Their defense is obviously the best part of that team. J.J. Watt leading that defense. They're still going to be very hard to score against. I do think the Colts have a much better season. The Jaguars I still have finishing in last. I don't think they did much to really improve, and it doesn't seem like anyone even wants to stay in Jacksonville unless you're Gardner Minshew. Seems like the only one that they want to keep and who wants to stay. And even Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette I don't think even wants to stay there.
No, he doesn't.
And he
And they have I can't. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. He's the defensive tackle. In Jaku. I don't know
oh
how to
yeah,
pronounce his name. I
in
apologize.
Joku and
He
Jaku.
already he said I'm not signing back. Like, don't even bother franchise tagging me. The franchise still franchise tagged him, so he has to play another year there, obviously. And then he got into a fight on Twitter with the owner's son. Like, I don't know how that's gonna work in the locker room, because I feel like if you fight with the owner's son, obviously there's gonna be some issues. So it's gonna be very interesting. I also have them finishing last just because of I feel like it's becoming a circus down there.
Oh, 100%. They were like decent. I thought like with the Nick Foles signing last year, I thought they would have been a little better. Obviously, Nick Foles got hurt. Gardner Minshew stepped in. Just no one wants to stay down in Jacksonville. No one wants to. But yeah, it's kind of chalk for the Jaguars. What about the AFC North? Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Bengals. Bengals getting the first pick, taking Joe Burrow. Where do you have the Bengals finishing?
I have the Bengals finishing in last.
I do as well. As good as Joe Burrow is, as good as I think he might do for the Bengals, I can't see the Bengals doing much.
They
They'll
don't
do
have a team
better.
around
They only
him.
had 2 wins. I think they will do better than they did last year. They did have a couple good signings on the defensive end. They got Von Bell from the Saints. I just don't think offensively they have anything around Joe Burrow. They have Mixon. They have like Joe Mixon. He's still very good. They re-signed AJ Green, but I mean he still needs protection. You're gonna force a rookie to step in as your starting quarterback, who they say is gonna be their franchise quarterback, because I believe they're coming. They want to get new uniforms next year, and they literally named it the Joe Burrow era.
Yeah, I feel, and the Bengals don't have a bad team. They really don't. They have AJ Green. They have a solid defense. I feel like the team didn't perform up to expectations last year. I don't think they were as good as they should have been. They're obviously the worst team in the league. I feel like with the talent they have on the team, they could be much better. And I feel like Joe Burrow can bring them there. And he's obviously going to be the starting quarterback. They got rid of Dalton. But you look at the offseason that Joe Burrow got to have, he hasn't even got to interact with his teammates and his coaches yet. I feel like that's going to affect every single rookie, and that's why I don't have the Bengals really improving. I think they could take a rocket ship the next year, but for this season coming, I don't see the Bengals doing much better.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll improve on top of the 2 wins they had, as they did have some signings on both the offensive and defensive end to improve the team. I don't think they improved it enough, and especially with just Zoom calls to try to get to know your teammates. They have no Like they don't know where receivers don't know where Joe Burrow wants to put the ball. Joe Burrow doesn't know where receivers want the ball in certain situations. It's a lot of chemistry issues that a lot of teams are gonna have, but mainly the Bengals with a brand new quarterback. And who do you have winning this division?
In this division, I have the Ravens. Obviously, Lamar
I
Jackson, the former MVP.
yeah,
He's got to take it.
I feel like that is kind of consensus. I don't see anyone really taking the division. I do have the Browns finishing in second. I think with Kevin Stefanski as the new head coach of the Browns, I think they are a much better team than they were last year. Last year they obviously had a disappointing year as they expected to improve on their 7-7-1 record the year before. They had one less win. They had a lot less losses. But or their 7-8-1 record, whatever it was. But
Yeah.
I see them improving upon it. I think they do come in second in this division, but I don't think the Ravens are beatable for this division at the moment. I think Lamar Jackson is just too much. And I think the Steelers are going to finish in third. I don't think the Steelers, although last year they made a couple trades to improve their team, I don't. They also had quarterback issues. Big Ben is coming back. I can see that second place going to the Steelers or the Browns. If the Steelers and Big Ben can put a lot more out there, I think that's a wild card team 100%.
I actually have the Steelers finishing in second because I feel like they were a team that almost made the playoffs last year. Like they're
With all
very
the
close.
issues.
They lost the last two games, and they had no offense. Literally, they had no offense. James Conner wasn't doing well because they had no passing attack, so that offense couldn't run the way it should have. I feel like with Big Ben back at quarterback, who's looking phenomenal in the pre-workout videos, but you know what? Everyone looks phenomenal in their pre-workout or their preseason workouts,
Yeah.
and but you look at that defense last year. That defense, when they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick, became a different animal. They were literally winning the Steelers' entire games because they were scoring themselves, and that's something that if you put a decent offense with a defense that obviously clicks at the middle and the end of the season, that could be a scary team next year. I don't think they could beat the Ravens. I mean, they can, but I feel like that's what's going to top them over the Browns. I feel like the Browns will be improved, like you said, though.
Oh, 100%. I it's gonna be a toss up between the Steelers and the Browns. Right, the AFC West: Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders. How do you see this division turning out?
I feel like you only see one division winner. Obviously, it's the former Super Bowl champions from last year. It's the Chiefs. And then I have
100%.
the Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders following it. Feel like honestly those three teams are a toss up. I put the Broncos on top of the other two teams just because I feel like Drew Lock obviously had a really good rookie season, really underrated. And I don't know if Justin Herbert's going to play, so that's the reason I put the Chargers underneath them. And the Raiders, I don't know what the heck's going on with them. They looked awful last season. They didn't really make too many impressive changes, in my opinion. So that's why I have the division going that way.
Yeah, I don't think they made any, to be honest. I think they had a mediocre draft at best. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they are set to do well. The Broncos I have finishing in second as well as Drew Lock, who had a good rookie year, is gonna have a better even second year because I believe they drafted two really good wide receivers. Like they got Jerry Judy.
Yep.
They, I think they are gonna be a very good team. They have two really good young receivers on top of already, I would say, in my opinion, a pretty good team. I think they are pretty good. The defensive side could use a little improvement, but I still think they're pretty good. I got the Chargers below them. I think Justin Herbert is not going to step in right away. I think that's Tyrod Taylor's team for the moment. I do think Justin Herbert's going to step in around week 4, week 5, and he's gonna take that team. I think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback, and I think it's just going to be like his team. They are going to end up doing better than most people are going to give them credit for. I really do. I really do. All right, going over to the other conference, the NFC. Who do you have finishing in the NFC West? 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, and Cardinals.
For that division, I feel like it's maybe well, not anymore, honestly. Actually, the NFC South is probably the most competitive division, but probably the second most competitive division. I feel like the 49ers, Seahawks are two of the top teams. I could see both of them winning a Super Bowl next year. But I have the 49ers finishing on top just because they seem to be a really good regular season team. And it's if you look at the schedule, that's what I really had to go into base it off of. It seems like the 49ers have a couple games advantage over the Seahawks. Obviously, they play pretty much the exact same teams, but the 49ers against a tougher opponent seem to have more home games. So I feel like I'm going to give the edge to the 49ers, but I could see either the 49ers or the Seahawks winning that division.
Yeah. I have the Seahawks on top of the 49ers. Reason why is 49ers got rid of Emmanuel Sanders, probably their best receiver. Um, they got rid of their best receiver. They didn't throw the ball much to begin with. Nothing against Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a great quarterback. They just didn't throw the ball much. And I think teams are going to start to figure out their run game. And after getting rid of your best receiver, it's going to be hard to just find a exact person to throw to. Like who's going to be his go-to man. I think they have a lot of sorting out to do. I do think they are still a very good team, especially on the defensive side. Their defense is insane, but I see the Seahawks taking this division. And then I have the Cardinals finishing in third with the Rams below them. I think the Cardinals, with Kyler Murray coming off, this was his rookie year, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Kyler Murray coming off this year, not only having Larry Fitzgerald for another year, he gets DeAndre Hopkins, as we talked about before. I think this Cardinals team is very good. They also had in my opinion, a pretty good draft as they got Isaiah Simmons, who I think is going to be very, very good in the NFL. And the Rams, I'm going to be honest, did they do anything? They got rid of one of their receivers. Blanking on names at the moment. Oh my God.
Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, they got rid
Yeah,
of Cooks. It's I don't know. I see the Cardinals hopping over the Rams, and I think the Cardinals are going to be not a dark horse, but I think they are going to shock a lot of eyes with the way they play this year.
I mean, how could they not? I have them also finishing in third. Did you see Cliff Kingsbury sitting in his house during the draft? He looked calm and collected in that beautiful living room of his, sitting on the couch, drafting Isaiah Simmons to number 8. I don't see, like, that team, Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, they're going to become definitely
I think
one
they're
of the
going to be good.
faces of the NFL.
I think they're going to be good in a couple years. I know the previous years they were poor, very poor. I just see them doing much better this year and in the future. I really
Definitely.
do. NFC North. Who do you got? Packers, Vikings, Bears, Lions.
I have the Packers finishing on top just because I feel like Aaron Rodgers, after the Packers draft Jordan Love in the first round, he's gonna come back and be like, guys, you made one of the biggest mistakes. You have 4 years left of maybe one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. The fact you drafted a quarterback already, he's gonna come out and just light up the NFL.
I agree with you 100%. Maybe not for that exact reason. I do think because this is what they did very similar with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. I believe it's actually the same year, like the same age that when they drafted Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre was, and drafting Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers was. I still think the Packers win this division. Vikings offensive coordinator Kevin Stefanski is now the Browns head coach. I think that they lose a lot of their offense. I think they were very good because of his offense. I have the Packers winning. The Vikings, like between the Bears and the Lions, I don't think either of them are good enough to overtake the Vikings as the second best team in this division. I see the Lions finishing in third. I
I do as well.
I think the Bears although they had a pretty good season last year, they did sign Nick Foles, but they have too many issues other than just Mitchell, like that quarterback position. Mitchell Trubisky was abysmal last year. Nick Foles, they're kind of hoping to come in. They still say it's Mitchell Trubisky's team. I don't know. The Lions, I think, like Stafford has a much better year. They had a pretty good draft on the defensive side. Um, I think they're going to come back and they're going to be much better team than they were. I still don't think they're going to overtake the Vikings, as I don't think the Bears or the Lions have enough to even come close. But yeah, I think the Lions are going to do better than the Bears this year. I do.
I just want to say I feel like the Bears, the reason I have them at the bottom of the division, is they're gonna have a quarterback competition. They could say Mitchell Trubisky is their quarterback, but after 2 years ago going into the playoffs and they have the double doink and they missed the field goal to beat the Eagles in the playoffs and then they go into next season or last season at this point, and it looks like they're gonna be a great team. And Mitchell Trubisky puts on that performance. The team obviously surrounding him is not great. But for him to have that severe of a drop off, the team's going to be looking to make a quarterback change. And I feel like anytime you have two decent quarterbacks, because I feel like Trubisky's still a decent quarterback. 2 years ago, he was in the Pro Bowl. Like you don't make the Pro Bowl if you're not at least a decent quarterback. And I feel like having a quarterback competition always hurts the quarterbacks because they never feel comfortable. If they make one bad play, they're like, oh my God, like now I have somebody who could take my spot just because of one bad play. I feel like if you're not comfortable as your starting quarterback, you're not going to play up to the expectations, and I feel like it's just going to be a constant quarterback carousel there, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very similar to the Jaguars this year, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting. But I mean, I guess we're just going to have to see how it goes. The Bears could either be good or they could be as bad as they were this year, or even worse. What about the NFC East? Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Redskins. How do you see this division going?
So I see the division going in favor of the Cowboys. I feel like the Cowboys have the most talented roster, and they have a different head coach for the first time in over a decade now. And I think Mike McCarthy, he's a good coach. Obviously, he took the Packers to multiple playoffs, and even though it didn't end well between him and the Packers, and he had a year break as a head coach, I think he's a solid coach. Now, the Cowboys always seem to be a team that's overhyped, but they have a good roster this year. They have a solid defense. Obviously, there's some issues with Dak Prescott and the offense, but if they keep the offense they had last year, I don't see how they don't improve from last year because they have a better head coach. That's a big thing for me. And then I have followed by the Eagles, Giants, and then the Redskins. I feel like could be the worst team in the league next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, but I think it's the Eagles division. I think, like, as you said, the Cowboys probably have the best roster. I feel like the Cowboys have had the best roster for a number of years now, and even last year they didn't win the division. But the Eagles, I think, a healthy Carson Wentz. They have a very good defense already, and they just signed a couple receivers, like through the draft, and drafted a couple receivers. I think they are. I think it's the Eagles division. The Cowboys just can't seem to click. Now they have to get used to a brand new offense without actually being able to practice the offense, which is going to be a struggle in itself. I have the Eagles win the division. The Cowboys finishing in second. Giants and Redskins is a bit of a toss up. I think Daniel Jones has a much better year. He's a year experienced in the NFL. Saquon Barkley is obviously a stud. I think the Giants finishing third with the Redskins finishing in last. I don't think the Redskins did enough. Like, they got Chase Young, obviously a great pick, probably one of the better players, or if not the best overall player coming out of that draft. I don't see them changing much, to be honest. I think both teams have a better year, but I don't think it changes in the standings. I don't think it does.
I feel like the Giants have a good setup though. They obviously have a team that needs to improve talent wise. They have some nice young players, and Daniel Jones, as weird as it was to pick him at number 6, he had a pretty good rookie season.
He
And the
did.
weirdest part about him is turnovers are always a problem for rookie quarterbacks. I feel, but his turnovers were different than most quarterbacks. Most quarterbacks struggle with interceptions, not being able to read the defense. He could limit his turnovers. He just needs to learn how to hold on to the football because most of his turnovers last year were from
Fumbles,
fumbles.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
only
I
had
agree.
like 13 interceptions.
Yeah,
That's not bad at all.
I think the Giants will have a much better year. I think Daniel Jones also have a much better year. Maybe in a couple years we can see the Giants fighting the Cowboys and the Eagles for that division. I gotta be honest, it's just not a great division overall. Most of them can't do anything out of division. They just struggle against playoff teams. Like, I think the Cowboys were like 1-6 against playoff teams last year,
Hmm.
which is, if you want to make the playoffs or do anything in the playoffs, you obviously can't be 1-6 against playoff teams. It's not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, that division's got to do something. They are just looked at as probably one of the worst divisions in the NFL. But I mean, something's got to change in that division, and the Cowboys have to play up to their talent level, in my opinion. What about the NFC South? Probably the most interesting division this offseason.
Yeah, this has to be the most entertaining one. Imagine going into a season with a division that has four four good quarterbacks, probably three phenomenal ones, and two all-time greats. That's just insane to even say. Um, I know you're not going to be happy with me based on these, obviously being a Saints fan yourself, but I actually have Tampa Bay finishing at the top of the division.
No, look. I do think the Bucks improved significantly over last year. At 7-9, getting Brady and Gronk on top of the offense they already have, I think they improved significantly. I still think it's the Saints division, and it's going to be the Saints division to lose, and here's why. The Saints are coming back. They bring back almost their entire roster. They lose a couple defensive players, but they do gain some defensive players. They got Malcolm Jenkins back from the Eagles, who was a part of that Super Bowl winning team. They're coming into an offense that they already know. They know this offense They know how to play it. They know where Drew Brees knows where all of his receivers want the ball at certain times. And on top of that, they got Emmanuel Sanders, as we were saying before, the best receiver from the 49ers, who is still a very, very good receiver. And you pair him up with probably one of, if not the best receiver in the NFL at the current moment, in Michael Thomas. And they still have Alvin Kamara in the back. Like, that team is just, that offensive power is insane. And on the defensive side, they have Cam Jordan. They're talking about signing Jadeveon Clowney, which I think is, if you can get the both of them on the defensive line, I think that's insane. Obviously, Tampa Bay improved. I think Tampa Bay does come in second, but it's going to take a little bit for Tom Brady and to fit into that offense. I think he's going to learn it easier than most people will give him credit for. I still think that they're going to struggle to start the season, as the Saints and Buccaneers, I believe they play week one. I'm almost positive they do. That it's gonna be a very interesting season. I think they're gonna split the season series, but I do think the Saints do take this division. I have the Falcons finishing in third, the Panthers finishing in last, but I feel the Panthers could be a little bit of a dark horse in that division. As look, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have easily, I think anyone can say, the best running back in the NFL at the current moment. Obviously, Saquon and Ezekiel Elliott are up there, but I think neither of them are doing what Christian McCaffrey is able to do, receiving, running, like everything. He's, I think, leaps and bounds. Not leaps and bounds. I think he's just ahead of them on certain parts of the football that he can make that team into something, or help make that team into something better than it is. And on top of that, they have a new quarterback. Obviously, Cam's going to the Patriots. I think they will improve on 5-11. They might be able to take third in that division, but it's gonna be interesting. I'm interested to see how it turns out.
I also have them finishing last in the division, and it's not because of talent, because like you said, Christian McCaffrey probably the best running back, at least consistently in the NFL. But if you look at their head coach, Matt Rule, I think he is probably one of the best young quarterback coaches coming up from college in a while that we've seen. Obviously, we've had like Sean McVay, who worked with NFL teams and then worked his way up. We haven't had a young, he's not that young, but a younger college coach come into the NFL. I wanted him to get the Jets job, obviously being as a Jets fan last year before they hired Adam Gase. I think he's a solid head coach, but again, the only reason I have them finishing last is because he doesn't get to put in his new system, similar to Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys. I feel like that's huge, and especially in a division where you have two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time with you towards the end of their career, but still two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
I mean, even
How the
before
heck do you compete with that?
well, even before you say the end of their career, like Drew Brees towards the end of his career went 13-3 with the Saints last year. Yeah, he did get hurt for a little. Tom Brady was 12-4 with the Patriots. Like that,
Yeah.
you could argue like towards the end of their career, but like I still think like, all right, to put it into not really much perspective, but Dak Prescott, very young, he wants an insane amount of money. He went 8-8 with the Cowboys and went 1-6 against playoff teams. Drew Brees at 39 years old went 13-3 with the Saints. Obviously, the Saints, in my opinion, are a better team than the Cowboys overall, but you still have Drew Brees at quarterback. Like they did so much better than the Cowboys. Tom Brady with the Patriots did so much better than the Cowboys. They're probably the two oldest quarterbacks in the NFL still like starting for their team. Like I just think it's very hard to compete against them. But going off Dak Prescott, does Dak Prescott deserve this deal that he wants? It looks like he's going to be franchise tagged. I don't know if he officially signed the franchise tag. Does he deserve this?
He did.
He did sign it?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought he did, but I wasn't exactly positive. Obviously, they have him for another year. Do you think Dak deserves this $35 million a year contract that he wants?
Not right now. Definitely not now. I feel like he can be. He has the talent. But if you look at the way he's performed and how the Cowboys have performed as a team, you can't put that much money into a quarterback and running back if they're not going to consistently get you deep into the playoffs. Obviously, they invested big into Zeke. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL. It makes sense. Dak Prescott hasn't looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's looked like a good quarterback, and I don't understand how you could pay him the amount of money that he's asking for if he can't consistently get you into the playoffs. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I agree 100%. Now, do I think he deserves a good amount of money? Yes, because I think it's not difficult or impossible, but I think it's harder to find a good quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's great quarterback, but he's definitely not a bad quarterback. He's definitely one of the like from the middle ground of quarterbacks. Like if you were to think of it this way, I think he's above them. I think he is a very good quarterback. He is not a great quarterback, and he's one that if I was the Cowboys, I would invest in for the future, 100%, because there's a lot of quarterbacks that turn out to like Mitchell Trubisky, for example, Pro Bowler, incredible rookie year, right? And then look what he did last year. Absolutely nothing. He couldn't hit the side of a barn if he wanted to. Like he struggled so much, and Dak is definitely above him, but he's not on the level of Drew Brees or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. Like he's not on that level. I mean, there's a chance he can get there, but going 1-6 against playoff teams last year does not prove to me that you deserve $35 million a year.
And besides the fact that he even went 1-6 against playoff teams, which is a horrendous record for as good of a team as the Cowboys should have been, they couldn't even make the playoffs in a
Well,
division that is
exactly.
considered one of the worst.
Yeah,
Like,
he does not deserve that amount of money. I do think he deserves to be paid though. I think he deserves to be paid because again, if I'm the Cowboys, it's not easy to find a young franchise quarterback the way some teams have. Like Joe Burrow, very good in college, but there is a chance that he is a complete bust in the NFL. I hope he's
mhm.
not. I like him. I hope he has a very good year with the Bengals this upcoming year. But there's always that chance that he can be that bust in the NFL. Same way Tua and like all those other quarterbacks could be that bust. Now I think Tua is talent wise and skill wise a little better, and he had a chance to be that first pick if he didn't get hurt in college this past year. But I just can't see that. I don't think Dak deserves that much money. I don't even think the Jaguars would be dumb enough to sign him for $35 million a year. Like
Exactly.
I just don't see it. Like I don't see a team in the NFL at this current moment who's going to be like, yeah, we'll give you $35 million a year. Not even the Redskins, and the Redskins have a lot of quarterback issues. I don't think actually the Redskins might do it. They have so many quarterback issues that he might go to the Redskins. But I just don't think there's another team in the NFL that's like, yeah, we want you, we'll give you what you want. I don't think
But
I just don't think he's that good enough. It's not worth it for a team to spend $35 million a year on Dak, and then him just do what he's going to do with the Cowboys, and you're not going to go to the playoffs. If you're paying $35 million a year for a quarterback who is probably one of the most important positions, if not the most important position on the football field, and he's not bringing you to the playoffs or like bringing you past the first round of the playoffs, is like it's not worth it. And on top of that, the Cowboys got Andy Dalton, who 4 out of his first 5 years brought the Bengals to the playoffs. Obviously, he's had his injuries. He's had like a lot of things have gone downhill since then. But I mean, I still think Andy Dalton is a very good quarterback. I just don't. It's not worth it for the Cowboys to spend that much money on Dak Prescott when you're not even making the playoffs, as you said, in probably the worst division in the league.
and another thing is, I understand that Jason Garrett, obviously his former coach, was considered to be one of the worst coaches in the NFL. He's had teams before Dak was there with Tony Romo. He's had teams that should have went to the playoffs and they just couldn't get over that hump. Obviously, I think Dak deserves to get the franchise tag, which would pay him $31.4 million, which is an
Which is
absurd amount already
one
for
hundred
just this
percent,
year.
100%.
And then you see how he does. And if he does well, you pay him. If he doesn't, you don't. He's going to be in a new system. If he does
Yeah,
well in the new
yeah,
system,
it
then he
might benefit.
deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. It might benefit him, and then maybe he shows like, oh, we can. It was just that system, whatever. Maybe he does get that money. I don't think he's worth that much money, even if he has a good year this year and goes to the playoffs, because I don't think that division is worth showcasing that you had a really good year. Now, if he goes against playoff teams like he obviously will, and he does much better than 1-6, even if he goes 3-3 or 4-2 or whatever it is, depending on how many playoff teams he plays, I don't obviously you can't tell right now because well the season didn't start. You don't know who's gonna be in the playoffs. But if he does much better against those playoff teams, then it's a conversation you have. Oh, maybe he is worth investing this $35 million a year into, because you can win that division. But I mean, the Eagles won it at 9-7, and to be fair, there was the Vikings at 10-6 who had a better record than them, who finished second in their division. Like, I just don't think it's worth it for the 35 million, even if he does have a good year, unless he shows that he can do better against playoff teams. And then if they make the playoffs in this new system, if they can go past the first round, if you can do something in the playoffs, then it's a conversation worth having. But this 35 million is absurd, and I just don't think he's worth that much money. I think there's there's very few quarterbacks in the NFL I would give that much money to. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and even at a chance Russell Wilson. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel
think
those.
he's already getting that. So
What?
I
Well,
think
no,
Russell Wilson's
no.
already getting that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's very few quarterbacks in the NFL I would even consider giving that kind of money to. Like, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, even Aaron Rodgers. Like, I don't think I would give them that money because they're older. They're imagine giving Tom Brady right now $35 million a year,
No.
like for like a 3-4 year contract. Like, that's an absurd amount of money, right?
Exactly.
Like
And I feel like they're older quarterbacks. So older quarterbacks, they could still be great. Tom Brady, Drew Brees both had like decent seasons last year. Drew Brees obviously had the injury which held him back a little bit. Tom Brady didn't have a great supporting cast. But those quarterbacks I feel like are willing to take less to have a better team around them. With the Cowboys, if they pay Dak this much money
they're
and
not
they
going to be
don't,
good. They
yeah,
won't be able to afford anyone, which is what I don't understand. Tom Brady for years and years took less money at New England in order for them to be good, and look what he's been able to do with it. For years and years, he's taken less money so that team can just buy defensive players, and offensive talent around him so that they would be better. And he's won 5+ Super Bowls. Like, it's just insane. Like, and then you want that much money. You're paying your quarterback and running back more than you're probably paying half your offensive line. Maybe even your
yeah,
entire offensive line, to be honest with you. I just feel it's a
yeah.
mistake, and I just feel it's not worth it. It's personal opinion.
No, you're right.
It's just not.
You're right. It's a hard situation because you could see it from either side. You see why Dak wants that much money. He is one of the younger quarterbacks in the NFL who looks like he has a high potential. He wants to get his money before he gets injured or something. But then as the Cowboys, you've already put so much money into players on your defense. You put money into Zeke. It just doesn't make sense from any standpoint for the Cowboys to do it. And it doesn't make sense for Dak Prescott to not want it. So it's just a hard situation. I see why the sides are stuck.
Yeah, like if they pay Dak, they will have a good team for maybe 2-3 years, and then they have to get rid of half their team because of the cap. They
Yep.
just won't be able to afford half the good players. And on top of that, they have probably one of, if not the best offensive line in the league. Half that offensive line is going to be older and broken up by the time if Dak decides to sign this contract, or if the Cowboys give him this contract. I for the Cowboys, I just don't think it's worth it. I think he's a very good quarterback. He's not worth $35 million a year because it breaks up that entire team. I think they already have a good team around them. They just haven't been able to do anything with it. And maybe this new system fits, but it's just I just can't see it changing much if Dak signs this contract. I think it just ruins a lot of other things for the Cowboys. That is going to end it here today. That is going to be the end of this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. This podcast will be out every Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see ya.